If you're an artist, I've got a really deep question for you. Are you ready? Any kind of artist. You could be a painter, a sculptor, a crafter, a photographer, any kind of an artist. Really, I suppose it could be a dancer. That's an artist, right? Any kind of artist. Would you do it anyway, even if you never made a dime from it? Okay, now the next question is, do you want to make some money with your art? And if so, answer this little question. Just a little bit extra to pay for art supplies, or maybe a little bit extra just so you get that validation that somebody likes your art, or maybe it's a lot more so you can pay for your travel or your workshops or things you want to attend. Or maybe you want to make a full-time living, quit your job, and become a full-time artist. Which are you? Go into the comments if you're watching right now. Tell me, which are you? Okay. Full-time living, replace your income, make just a little bit more money for travel and things, just make a tiny bit more money to pay for art supplies, or maybe you don't even care about making any money with your art. Just go in and put a comment in the comment section right now. That'd be really cool. Today, we will talk about questions that you guys have submitted, and we're gonna answer those questions for you today on Art Marketing Business. What is today? Art School Live Marketing Monday. Hello. I can't even think about it. So let's get this show officially started.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rhoads. Now, here's your host, Eric Rhoads.
I see a lot of you people are going into the comments, and so it's kind of fun to see what you're doing. Here are the questions we're going to deal with today, in case you want to deal with one of those questions yourself. One is, do I need a big audience to sell my art? Another is, people are asking for free art and exposure. How do I deal with that? How do I keep collectors engaged? Talk to me about websites. What about giveaways on social media? What about social media, SEO, and blogs, newsletters, many, many more? We will probably get to all those questions. We also have the ability to put you on live. If you would like to do that, just go on live to artschool.live/stream, right? And then do all the stuff it says. It's got, you basically turn your mic on, etc. And then we would love to have you on camera. And so we'd like to see some new people in here today. My name is Eric Rhoads, and I'm the founder of several art magazines, newsletters, conferences, events, retreats, blogs, etc. for artists. And I used to do marketing for a living in the radio industry. And I've actually helped lots and lots of businesses, consulted lots of businesses, and helped some of those businesses become mega businesses, including a couple of big national brands. And I've been working with artists for a couple of decades now, and that is my superpower. It's the business of art. I need a big red S. I have a big red. No, I won't say that. Anyway, if you would like to take advantage of that, I'd like to see if I can help you a little bit. So bring your questions on. You can put them in the chat. And so we're going to do that. Just come on camera, ask me questions. You can send your questions to me, Eric@streamlinepublishing.com. That's my little itty bitty little tiny little company. All right. So let's get right to it. First question comes from Elena in California. I'd love it if you guys give your full names and your cities. That would be really terrific too. Elena says, I don't have many followers yet. Is it even worth trying to sell my art now, or should I wait until I have a bigger audience? All right, so let's kind of talk about this in general, Elena. First off, you don't have to have any social media. You don't have to have any Facebook, Instagram, X, whatever. You don't have to have any of that. You can, that's an option. But the very thing you want to do is you want to get to a point where you have a little bit of experience selling artwork, if selling artwork is important to you. Now, you can multiply sales using tools like that, using advertising, using a lot of other methods. but you may not need to multiply sales. I mean, when I first started out, my goal was, first off, I wanted to check a box. I wanted to know that somebody actually liked my work enough that they were willing to spend money on it. And then, so, it started out, they were willing to spend, $100 on it. That made me feel good. And then, it's like, well, I wonder if they're willing to spend $200 on it. And then after I accomplished that, it was more and more and more and more. So it's really, for me, it was about validation. It wasn't about the money, because I have another full-time job. But it might be about the money for you, and that's cool too. So it starts out with validation. The next thing you want to do is you want to kind of get used to selling art, because here's the thing. It's very out of your comfort zone, right? So I got a call from this art gallery, and I had never been in an art gallery before, and I didn't have much experience selling artwork. As a matter of fact, I don't know if I had any. And this art gallery said, we want to put you in our art gallery. And it was in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It was a pretty big deal. And I was nuts. You could ask my wife. I was just nuts. I was like, oh, nobody's going to want to see my artwork. And I was just totally negative. And so I had to go through that experience of learning not to be negative and learning how to get comfortable putting myself out there, because you're very vulnerable at that stage, right? You're like, oh no, what if nobody buys it? What if nobody likes it? You just have to get beyond that, and you have to be willing to experiment. So I like the idea of just getting comfortable in the beginning. I think if you're just starting out, just have a little art show, get involved in a community art gallery, maybe put a little art display up at a local coffee shop or something, and just see how it goes, right? There's a lot of tips that I talk about in my books where, I can tell you how to do those things in more detail. By the way, you can't get my book right now. It's out of print. You can buy it. Somebody will sell it on eBay or something, I suppose. But the new version is coming out soon. I don't know when. I haven't heard from the printers yet. But I completely rewrote my book, Make More Money Selling Your Art. There's a brand new cover. There's 500 new pages. And I should have just fixed it, but I didn't. I wanted to make it all current and change everything. And so I ended up doubling the size of it, which is really crazy. Anyway, that's coming up soon. But anyway, I think the idea is study it and you just get out there. So should you wait till you have a bigger audience? You don't need a bigger audience. How many paintings do you want to sell? And everybody gets hung up on this bigger audience idea, and it's just nonsense. It is. The reality is, most of us have, I don't have very many paintings that I can produce in a given year that are actually going to sell, because I'm busy, right? I got another job. I'm running this business. And so I paint a lot, but I don't get a lot of output, right? I'm working on a big giant painting right now for a museum. And it's taken me forever, right? Because it's big. But, sometimes I've got a museum show that I'm working on. That I'm not a museum show. I've got a gallery show that I'm working on. And I have just, it's been like 2 or 3 years working on it because I just haven't had time to get to it. So my output isn't high. So, your output may not be high either. And of course, quality output versus output is a big difference, right? So, you may only have to sell 1 or 2 paintings. And so you don't need a lot of people to sell 1 or 2 paintings. You need 1 or 2 people, actually 1 person to sell 2 paintings. So you don't have to have a lot of people. This idea of bigger audiences people get hung up on that. All right. If you have someone, if you want to come on camera, just go to artschool.live/stream. We would love to have you on. And then, of course, if you have comments or questions, you can put them in the chat as well. And we would love to hear, what your experiences of selling art are. Okay, here's our next question. Eric, this is from Remy in, I think it's pronounced Marseille. Okay, Amadine, come on here. Amadine, it's my producer. Amadine,
Hello.
spelled Marseille, Marseille, which I've always said it's pronounced Marseille. How do you pronounce it in France?
It's actually Marseille.
Marseille.
Marseille. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, this is from Remy, maybe Amadine. How do I say Remy in France? Remy.
So it's Remy from Marseille.
𝗵𝗵 from Marseille. All right, great. Thank you. Oh, thank goodness for Amandine. Give her a thumbs up. Okay, how do you deal with people asking for free art or exposure? I'm not sure how to respond professionally. All right, so I'm going to assume, 𝗵𝗵, that people are asking for free art because they want to give you exposure, like in a museum or in a shop or something like that. I don't know. So I have mixed feelings about that. First off, I have some friends who are very well known, very famous, very successful artists who never, ever, 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 ever give away a painting. It's always for sale. They have disciplined themselves to that point where, and I'm not necessarily that person, right? You know, sometimes like my neighbors, I don't want to sell something to my neighbors. So they say they want something. I oftentimes say, well, you know, okay, great, pay for the frame or something, right? So but when it comes to other people, it's a whole different story, right? In my professional life. And so there are going to be people who are going to want something, and you can't give everybody something, or else you'll just, you know, you'll never sell anything. Now that may be okay with you. Barbara Tapp, who's a dear friend and who's probably in the chat right now, Barbara Tapp likes to give away paintings. You know, she's got a deep, deep, wonderful heart. Somebody will be walking up to her. I was with her. We were at Fall Color Week in Maine. Somebody walked up to her. They said, "Oh, this is so beautiful. I used to come here as a kid, blah, blah, blah." She says, "Well, come back in a few hours or an hour or so. I'll give you the painting." They're like blown away. And she's made a lot of friends this way, and it's been really cool. So it's cool to do that if you want to do that. But what happens a lot is you get a lot of people, a lot of organizations who want a free painting. Sometimes they want it for a silent auction or something like that. You've got to ask yourself, ultimately, what value does this bring to me? Now, part of the value is you've just got a good heart and you want to help somebody out. That's cool. But if you're thinking of it from a business standpoint, so I had somebody come up to me and they emailed me and they said, we are doing this. I don't even remember what the auction was. We're doing an auction, a live auction. We would like to put a painting of yours in the live auction. This is 20 years ago, probably. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And they said, you know, just give us a little painting worth, you know, maybe $500 or $1,000. I said, no, I'm going to give you a big painting worth about $5,000. They said, really? Why? I said, well, because in exchange for that, you're going to do the following. One is I'll give you a big painting, but in exchange, I want you to use that painting on all your promotional materials, your websites, and I want it to have my name on it. So you have a chance to win this $5,000 painting from Eric Rhoads. Why did I do that? Number one is it made my painting stand out. It got my name on it. Everybody saw my name, and it packaged my painting is worth $5,000. And so what it accomplished 3 goals. The second thing I said is I'll also do it if you introduce me from the stage, show the painting, and have me stand up. And they did that. And I said, I want you to do that early in the evening. And the reason I wanted that is so people would come up to me and talk to me afterwards and they feel connected to me. And that worked. The third thing I did is I said, I'll be generous. I'll give you another painting. They said, what? I said, yeah, you wanted a $1,000 painting. I'll give you a $1,000 painting. But instead of putting it into the silent auction, because I'm giving you a $5,000 painting for the silent auction, I said, instead of doing that, I'm going to put up a fishbowl with the painting, and I'm going to say, win this painting, put your name, address, and email in here. And I had little slips of paper or put your business card in there. Why did I do that? Now I have the opportunity to get all the names of all the people who were interested in my artwork so that I could put them on my newsletter, right? So that's the kind of thinking you want to be doing. And so if you're dealing with people asking for free art, look at it as a positive thing. They want your art. And if you can find a way to leverage that into something that is very important for you, that will help you sell art, then I think it's a good thing. But if there's not a way you can leverage it, then I would just be a little reluctant to do that. All right. Hope you guys say hello in the chat. All right. So part-time. Paula says, I'm part-time. I'm retired, but I'd love to make enough money to supplement travel, maybe have my own art scene. Well, you're a good place to be today, Paula, because you can make some extra money from some of these tips. Okay. Here is a question from Susan Drennan in the chat. I noticed, Susan, you ought to come on video with us. I noticed that a lot of artists seem to have the personality to do interesting reels. They are bubbly and outgoing. I'm an introvert and somewhat shy. How can I be more outgoing? It's scary. Susan, I totally can relate to you because you're not going to believe this, because I can do anything on camera now, and I can go blah, 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 and not worry about anybody thinking badly of me, even though you probably will from that. Here's the deal. I'm an introvert, and I am now what's called an ectovert, an introvert who has the ability to overcome my introvert tendencies and be outgoing. I had to learn this, and I did it. The way I did it is I went to two things. I went to Dale Carnegie. This is a course, and this is probably like 300 years ago, right? I don't know if they even still exist. And that helped me. But the other thing I did is I joined Toastmasters. And Toastmasters, the very first day I went, they said, and there were only about 30 or 40 people there, right? It was at a Denny's restaurant. And I had to stand up and tell about myself. And you'd have thought they were going to murder me, right? That just was awful. But every week I had to do it, and I had to prepare things, and it really got me out of my shell. There's also all kinds of things online you can do that. But the reality is, if you want good things in life, you're going to have to put yourself out there. And I have a family member who's going through this right now, and you just have to put yourself out there. You have to try things and do things you're not going to want to do. So anyway, your question is, people are bubbly and outgoing. Look, I was watching a reel last night on Instagram. As a matter of fact, it was so effective that I responded to it and asked them for more information and set up a meeting. But the guy was very, very quiet and very shy. He was very matter of fact. He told his story. And so what I would do, Susan, is I would go on to one of the AIs, and I would say, and everything in AI is about the prompt, right? So one I like to use a lot is called Claude AI. And I would go on Claude AI and I'd say, I need a 90-second reel that accomplishes the following, whatever it is you're talking about, getting people to do something. I'm very shy and introverted, so I need to feel comfortable, whatever I'm going to say. And then have it write it, and then try putting it through a couple different times till you get it right, and then go in, edit yourself. And then you can put that into a screen or a teleprompter app or something. And you can just read it, and just read, hey, my name is Susan and I'm really, really shy. And so this is really hard for me to say, but I don't want to be so shy that I prevent myself from showing my artwork. And so today I'm doing something I've never done before. I'm putting myself out there on a reel, and I would love for you guys to give me input on what I can do better or how I'm doing. Everybody's going to be commenting. And when they're commenting, Susan, Instagram's going to see that. They're going to go, oh, you've got a lot of engagement. And then they're going to put it out there. See, when you have 100 followers, Instagram doesn't give it to all 100 followers. They give it to 3. And so if those 3 people comment or engage, they'll give it to 3 more. If those people engage, they'll give it to 3 more. And they'll keep doing it until they see a trend, and then they'll push it out to a lot of people. That's how it works. So I would focus on that. Reels are a really good way to get a lot of attention. I do a lot of reels, but also, you don't have to do that. Now, reels everybody's competing with TikTok. So YouTube is doing essentially what they call shorts. Those are like reels. Instagram's doing them. Everybody's doing them because they're trying to compete. But and so they will favor you. They'll give you more exposure with a reel than they will with a regular post. But you've got to ask yourself this: what is the goal? What do I have in mind? If you're just getting somebody to watch a reel, isn't doing you any good. You want people to take a specific action. What is that specific action? And then, you know, from that specific action, maybe it's to get them to sign up for your newsletter, something like that. So anyway, I hope that I answered that question for you. If you guys want to come on live, you know what the drill is. Just go to artschool.live. If you have a camera, artschool.live/stream. If you have a camera, you just come on. Okay, so raise your hand or comment right now if you guys attended my Art Business Mastery Day last January. Anybody? We had several thousand people attending, and my goal was to help you guys hit your goal for 2025, right? And a lot of people have told me it was life-changing. They're hitting their goals. So I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to do it instead of January. I'm going to do it in November so you can plan things out a little bit earlier. It's called Art Business Mastery. It's a full day of art training, and I made it really, 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 really inexpensive. I mean, it's like $47 to attend for one day, right? How can you go wrong with that? And I've got a lot of experts who we will announce soon who are signed up. They're going to be teaching, and I'll be teaching. And this one day could transform your art career. So go to artbizmastery.com, block the date out for November 15th. I know it's close to Thanksgiving. This is the time you need to be doing your planning, right? So block it out November 15th and go to artbizmastery.com. And while you're there, by the way, there's a red bar at the top, and you can get the replays from last year. And they're still not very much money. I think they're more money now than they were then, which they should be because they're more valuable now. Okay, kind of like fine wine. Okay. Sandra says, I have built a loyal collector base. Congratulations. That's hard to do, Sandra. What are some creative ways to keep them engaged and coming back without sounding pushy? Well, I think the first thing, a lot of us artists are overly concerned about being pushy, right? Because we're artists, right? We don't want to be pushy. We don't like salespeople. We don't like to be pushy. We don't want to be pushed. Look, you can do a lot of things without being pushy. It doesn't mean you can't nudge something, but nudge is different than pushy. Pushy is like being loud and obnoxious and asking too many times and pushing too many times, right? I think I told this story one time. I once had somebody come up to me early in my stage. Remember, I was an introvert. And he said, you need to tell your story more. You need to get out there more. You need to be seen more. And you need to send some more emails. I'm like, I don't know. You know, I'm sending one every 6 months. I'm a little concerned about that. And he said, no, you need to do more. And so that gave me the confidence to start doing more, right? So, you know, people will not get offended unless you go too much in their space. So what I would do is just, I think, you know, creative ways to stay engaged. You know what I like? First off, I do love newsletters. The problem with all newsletters is they're boring and they're about you, and you're assuming they care about you, and they probably don't. They really care about the artwork that you produce. That's not about you. And secondly, they probably don't care about that too much. They're not thinking about you every day like you are. And so you got to get their attention. So you want to try and get them to sign up for a newsletter, and you want to make your newsletter interesting. You know, like I created a format one time about, I was teaching a little bit of art history in a newsletter, right? Just like, you know, it was like why Van Gogh did this. And then I'd do a little story on that. And then I'd tell all my other stuff, but, you know, come up with something interesting that people want to open, because most of the newsletters I get, and there are hundreds of them now, most of them I never open, because the subject line has got to get my attention, and it's got to be about something that I care about. If it says, you know, my trip to China, boring, and I know I've done that a few times lately, but you know, if I talked about why the plein air movement in China is bigger than the plein air movement in America, everybody would probably want to read it. That's what I'm thinking. So that's kind of making the point. So you don't have to sound pushy. So I think, you know, what I would do if I were in your shoes, I don't know how many collectors we're talking about. Let's say it's 100. I'd drop a postcard in the mail to them once a quarter with a picture of something new. keep your name in front of them. I would be thinking about sending something now that says, hey, Christmas is coming up. You want a custom painting? Instead of saying a word commission, a custom painting for a gift for somebody. I need some time now to be working on that. So now's a good time to book that. Or if you need a custom portrait, I would probably be sending, here's my latest new painting releases. I'd send those whenever I have a new painting. And of course, you want to go to follow you on social media and stuff like that. I just some simple things like that. You might even, if you have good collectors, one of the things I did one time is I made up some note cards and of a particular painting that somebody bought, and I mailed him a box of those note cards. And I said, hey, thanks. I was thinking about you. You bought a painting 6 months ago. Thanks for that. Here's some note cards just to say thank you. On the back, of course, there's a QR code, and it had my name, and it said painted by Eric, and that kind of a thing, and my website. And so when they're writing notes to other people, what are they doing? They're promoting me and my artwork to other people. So that comes back to you in that way. So think about different ways that you can be creative. And that's not pushy. It's like just saying, hey, I'm still alive. Think about me for just a minute. I did a campaign one time. It was very effective. As a matter of fact, good idea. I should do it again. This is back in my radio days. I did a campaign for one of my businesses where I sent out one postcard a week it was a small group of people. It was about 200 prospective advertisers. And I sent out one postcard a week. I actually came up with 5 thoughts, 5 ideas, and I printed 5 different postcards and enough so I could repeat one every 5th week, right? So the same postcard came out every time, and you would think they wouldn't notice, but people are weird. They get postcards in the mail and they're like, oh, they don't even pay attention. Second time they see it, they don't pay attention. Third time they see it, go, oh. And then, next thing you know, they're getting messages repeated, but they don't necessarily remember that you said that one before. And it really boosted my sales considerably. It was pretty effective. All right. If you guys have a question, go into the chat, say so, and put a Q or something in front of it if you can. Here's a question from Laurie Stanford. Do you use all your receipts for taxes, even if you don't use a particular canvas, et cetera, for that year? I love my husband with his heart issues to retire, and I could make enough income from art. Laurie, I am not a tax person, but I know that there's certain things that you can deduct and certain things you can't. But I'm pretty sure as long as you're a professional, meaning you're selling paintings, as long as you have some history of selling paintings, check with your bookkeeper, your accountant. I think the metric is you have to have sold something at least 1 out of 3 years, but I may be wrong about that, may have changed. Anyway, if you're selling some artwork, then there's a lot of things that you can deduct that relate to that artwork. And in some cases, it might even be travel, but it has to be legitimate. I mean, I would never suggest something that wasn't. But if you're taking trips like I am, where you're taking trips to create paintings, then that, in theory, should be deductible. I just went to China and I did, I don't know, 30 paintings or something like that. So those 30 paintings will be turned into studio pieces that I can then use. So there's a lot of things I probably can deduct from that. I will have to check on that. But anyway, and you want to make enough money so that you can, have a income from after retirement. I think that's a really terrific idea. A lot of people do that. You have to, the key to this is, Laurie, is you want to set a number, whatever that number is, because you have to be thinking about that number. And so like I may say to myself, okay, I want to become, worth $1 billion or something. And so I'm going to put that number in my head. And in the beginning stages, I'm not going to believe it. But if I keep repeating that number, I'll start believing it, right? So whatever that number is, so you say to yourself, okay, I would love it if we could bring in an extra $1,000 a month, right? It might be $10,000. It might be $2,000. Whatever the number is, figure it out and then work backwards. Okay, say okay, if it's $1,000 a month, how much do my paintings sell for? And maybe it's $250 just to make it easy. You say, okay, how do I sell 4 paintings a month? And then once you start asking yourself questions like that, I saw a thing on Instagram yesterday from Brian Tracy. He said, okay, whenever what you do is you get quiet time. I call it thinking time. You get quiet time and you ask yourself a question, and you just ask that question over and over again. And then you just get quiet and you think about it, and you don't check your email and you don't do anything, and you just give yourself 30 minutes and the answer will always come to you. It's really true. I program in, Amandine will tell you, I program in thinking time on my calendar. Sometimes I forget to, but thinking time, I have to discipline myself to sit down and think about, okay, what's my problem du jour? How do I solve that problem? And come up with a lot of different answers, not just the first 2 or 3. Okay. All right. Next question comes from, by the way, if you guys want to come on camera, just go to artschool.live/stream. And shame on you for not coming on. Okay. Here's from Hugo in Bush. What if you have the other problem? I love to go out and paint, but people find you everywhere. How can you politely get rid of someone if you're on limited time and that person just is messing around? Hugo, that's a really great question. It happened to me the other day. I was actually in China, and this one person who spoke English loved speaking English with somebody. And I'm sitting there trying to paint a model. I've got a rare opportunity to paint a model in a traditional costume. And this guy is just talking to me constantly. And I'm not the guy who's going to shut him down, right? That's just not who I am. So in that particular case, I didn't have a solution. But I would get to a point, I would say something like this. I didn't have to in this case because he kind of eventually disappeared. But I would say, you know, I now have to work on the eyes, and I have to concentrate on this for a few minutes. If you give me a few minutes to concentrate, and then they'll go away, and then they'll be reluctant to come back. A lot of people, when they're plein air painting, they put earbuds in their ears, and they don't even have them on, but they put them in just so they don't get interrupted. I like getting interrupted because I like to engage with people. I like to teach them how to paint. You know, I got interrupted. I was painting in China, and this family came up, and they didn't speak any English, but their little 8 or 10-year-old daughter was fascinated. So I kind of made some gestures and held the brush and put it in her hand. And I said, okay, now you're going to do this. And I put it, and I had her make a brush stroke. And then I said, no, you do it by yourself. And she did it. And it's fun. I like to do that with kids. So it's just depends on how you want to do it. Sometimes politely is you can say, hey, you know, I've really enjoyed talking to you. I hope that we'll get a chance to talk again. Now I'm at a point where I really need to concentrate on my painting because I've got a deadline. And as long as you're nice about it, I think that people will understand that. Okay. If you have questions, put them in the chat. You want to come on live, just go to artschool.live/stream and we'll do it. I'm looking through the chat right now. Okay. Let's see here. Some other questions that have come up. Thomas W. I know a Thomas W. Might be a very famous artist. He sells, I sell original paintings at very high price points, and I don't want to dilute my brand with cheap prints, but I also want recurring income. How can I afford more affordable offers without damaging my positioning or feeling like I'm selling out? That's a really great question, Thomas. I would say, first off, you know, when I first got into this industry, prints were kind of like, everybody was like, prints are bad, you know, don't do prints. And maybe that was the thing then, but you know, first off, there are very high quality prints. Not everybody can afford an original. If you have a limited edition print, limited, maybe 1 of 100, 1 of 200 or whatever, it actually makes the painting more valuable. I think you can put a higher price in the painting. Now, a lot of people do, especially in art shows, is they'll sell somebody a print, and sometimes they're limited or not. I was in an art show sitting with my buddy 𝗪𝗵𝘁, and he's in an art show, and somebody buys a print from him. They're looking at things, they buy a print, and he actually took them from buying the print to buying the original, which was a pretty expensive original. And it was pretty amazing to see how he did it. And so they are, you know, prints are kind of like dopamine stimulators. When you buy something, you want to buy more, right? You ever catch yourself doing that? You buy a shirt or something, it's like, oh, I got to look for another shirt. And then you're buying a pair of pants and you're buying a pair of boots. And so it happens. So I think that first off, I would not worry about that. I would make them expensive enough that they're not just giving them away, and maybe especially limited editions. And I think you can multiply yourself. See, what I was thinking about this in the shower this morning, the biggest problem that artists have is they can't multiply themselves easily. If you have an original painting and that's your primary source of income, then you can only sell original paintings. And the key to a lot of successful sales is to have what I call an entry point. And sometimes it's a low cost point of entry, right? So, somebody buys an inexpensive necktie, and the next thing you know, they're buying a shirt and they're buying a pair of pants. So you want to have something that people can enter into, so, if you have a place, so you get a lot of visits to your website, you have a place where you could buy a print, and, you can work out deals with companies that will fulfill them for you. But you want to be careful. There's a very prolific, I don't use names, I don't want to hurt anybody, but there's a thing that's selling to artists right now, and a lot of their whole theory is to sell prints. And a friend of mine is using them and selling prints. I said to him the other day, I said, have you ever bought one of the prints so you can experience what it's like? He says, no. I said, well, buy one. The print came and it was awful. And he's like, I don't want to be associated with these people anymore because the prints are terrible. My colors are wrong. And so you want to be really careful about that. But at the same time, you don't want to have to be going to the mailbox and all that stuff. You want to automate that stuff. I have a friend who has a business and he sells fitness equipment, and he does all his own fulfillment himself. And I'm like, don't do that. You're boxing up weights. You got to employ people to carry them around, and you got to pay for their insurance, and you got to take things to the post office. So you pick things up every day. You put addresses on them. Pay a little bit more and let somebody else do that. You don't have all that hassle. And I think that would be the answer to that. So I'll if you want to talk to me about that personally, give me a call. I'll do that. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. We have a little bit more time. If you want to ask a question, just come to artschool.live/stream. Let's see here. Question. One of my favorite, this is from AD. One of my favorite things is to paint with friends. But I also want to paint. I'm in a competition, and so I don't want to paint with friends when I'm in a competition. What do I do? That's why I invented my retreats. I was at the Carmel Art Show. I was sitting around with some artists, and they were talking about how they love seeing each other, but they only get like one night together, and they can't paint next to each other because they're competing to win, to sell paintings. And so I suggested we all get together in a retreat, and that's how I started my Adirondack retreat, my Fall Color Week retreat, my Winter Artiscape retreat, that kind of a thing. So I don't know. I mean, I think, set aside time when you can paint with friends that you're not competing with. I have a bunch of friends, especially up here in the Adirondacks, that, we'll get together a couple times a year. We'll go to a waterfall or something. We'll paint together. We're not selling to the same people in the same galleries. It's not a big deal. So anyway, by the way, I've got a retreat coming up. It's called Fall Color Week. It's my next retreat. It's in Door County, Wisconsin, which I hear is stunningly beautiful. It's supposed to be the Cape Cod of the Midwest, on the rocky shores of the Lake Michigan. And the fall color up there is supposed to be spectacular. That's September 28th through October 5th. I think we still may have a few seats left. I'm not sure. I haven't checked because I've been gone. But grab it. It's called Fall Color Week. Go to fallcolorweek.com. Okay, we have a guest. We have Misty. Hey, Misty.
Hi.
Misty, your name is Misty April. You have two first names.
April's my middle name.
April, okay. And where are you from, Misty?
I originally from Northern California, but I am in Joshua Tree, California right now.
Okay. Because you are so brave, Misty, for coming on camera today, I am going to give you a full 8-hour replay of my Art Business Mastery Day from last year. You'll get a ton of value out of it. I don't know what we sell it for, probably $100, but hang on with Amandine afterwards and I'll give it to you. What's your question?
I really appreciate that. It was your shame on you for not coming on camera that got me to come on. I haven't eaten breakfast or anything. I'm just like, okay, I'll just do it.
All right. Thank you.
So my question is, I'm very, very happy that I ended up here in this little tiny tourist town. We have the national park here. So it brings in, it brings in all kinds of tourists, and I love the area. Downtown is kind of ugly, but in a kind of quirky way. I like everything about where I am, and I just want to be able to I do realistic watercolors. I do portraits. I used to do murals, but I'm too old for that now. And I'm just trying to figure out what is the best way to take advantage of being in a tiny little tourist town. What should I do?
Well, if I were doing that, and by the way, I think that's a really great question. I would, the first thing I would do is you've got to have a place to sell your artwork. Do you have a place?
Okay, so I have this, I moved into a little, one of the tiny homes.
Yeah.
And I love the area. I have 5 acres and I could turn it into a, there's Airbnbs on this road. I have, there's people from all over the world that come here for the national park and to stay in these Airbnbs.
How far are you from the action?
I'm about 8 minutes from downtown. Yeah.
So I would not do that.
Okay.
First off, I don't like to mix my business in my home. I work out of my home, but I have, when I'm in Austin, I have my office and I have my art studio, and they're not in the same building. And because I need to be able to get away from work, right? And here in the Adirondacks, I'm in the same building and I don't paint as much because I don't want to come back to work. So I wouldn't mix that up. But secondly, there's an author by the name of Roy Williams. Roy has written a trilogy of books called The Wizard of Ads, and they're really great marketing books. They're 20 years old now. But one of the things he says in one of the books is the best advertising you can do is a great location. In other words, money spent on a great location is more valuable than trying to get people to go 8 minutes out of their way to find you. Let me give you a really great example of this. I was in downtown Saranac Lake this week, and I live there. So I had friends, and so we're waiting for a table at a restaurant, and we're walking around town, kind of looking at things. And we wandered in to the art gallery that was across the street. And we went in, we looked around, we didn't buy anything, but we could have, right? And then we are still trying to kill time. And there's a sign that says Art Gallery of Photography upstairs. Everybody just walked by it because nobody wanted to walk upstairs. It was too much effort, right? And even though they were on the main drag, it's too much effort. So there was another store right next door to that. They walked right into that store, but they wouldn't go upstairs. It just was kind of weird. And by the way, I've lived in this town for 30 years and I've never been upstairs. I've never gone upstairs.
Wow.
So I think that, what you have to do is look for ways to overcome resistance. And so what I would do is I would try to find someone, because you don't want to have to invest in getting a storefront and paying rent right now. What you want to do is get some practice. So I would go and figure out how you can become a wall in somebody else's store. So I would, and by the way, keep in mind, I don't know if you've ever seen me say this, Misty, but environment is everything, right? So if there's a place in town where people are spending more money than a t-shirt shop, then figure out how you could get a wall in that place, right? So for instance, let's in Lake Placid, there's a lovely store that sells really high-end clothing, really expensive high-end clothing. I've never bought anything in there because it's too expensive, but they've been in business for 40 years. So obviously people do. And so I might go into them and say, hey, listen, I would like to put a display of my paintings in here, and I'll give you 50% of every painting that sells, because that's what you would do with an art gallery anyway. Then you set your prices higher than you would in a t-shirt shop, because t-shirt shop people are looking for a $20 bargain in there, and there it's going to, just by being in there, it's going to send a signal. But I would start out, find somebody to represent you in town. Now, the second thing I would do is I would ask myself, what happens when I'm going to Joshua Tree? I'm going to visit there. What am I going to do? What would happen if you were going to a tourist town? What's the first thing you would do?
It depends on who I'm with, but eat.
You would eat. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you probably had a long drive. A lot of people that are coming here are coming from LA.
Yeah.
And they don't stop anywhere in between. So yeah, so they go eat.
Well, and so the first thing you do is you're going to eat. So a nice place to put your paintings is in a restaurant, right?
Mm-hmm. There's so many cute places.
And especially if you've been out driving through the park and then, you're falling in love with the beautiful cacti and you want to remember that, then you have beautiful cacti paintings. They're going to go, oh, I need a memory to take home with me.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
When they're going to dinner and they're having a couple of drinks, all of a sudden that changes things. But where I was going with that is that most people will Google things to do. I do this every place I go. I Google things to do, and I was somewhere the other day and I Googled it. And so, I Googled things to do in Shanghai, right? And so I looked up all these things to do in Shanghai, and I saw things that I had not anticipated seeing that I ended up doing. And so how can you penetrate?
I'm told, so maybe younger people younger people do that. So that's true. I'm sure. I assume they research before they even leave, but yeah, you're right. When they get here, maybe they Google. So
I don't think I would assume that. I think that I mean, some do. There are people like me who will get in the car and say, hey, let's go somewhere. And then, we'll throw a bag in the car and we'll go somewhere and, don't even know where we're going. And then there are other people who plan it for 6 months. Mm-hmm. So the point being is, if you can figure out what people are going to see, for instance, back in the day, I don't know how relevant this is anymore because people stay in Airbnb and so on. But it used to be, if you'd stay in a hotel room, there was a book in the hotel room, usually produced by somebody tourist thing, right? And there's a book of all the things to do in Sedona or wherever. And so you'd have this book, and it was a place you could place ads that would be very specific to tourists, right? So that might be a website, it might be a book, it might just, but what you want to do is figure out, how do I get myself in front of the tourists who are there? Because branding really helps, because if they're going to stumble into other random art and art galleries, you want to be the one they're looking for first. And that's where that can help you.
That sounds good. Okay.
All
so
right.
What was number one? I already forgot. Number one was, help me out.
Number one was, don't do an art studio. Go get a location. Mm-hmm. And so there's a couple of options. One is you can pay for space. Option two is you can commission for space. Option three is you can just say, hey, will you carry my stuff and sell it? Right. Mm-hmm. But if you have the opportunity where you can be in there from time to time, when it's busy tourist days, and help selling, that's good. Now, if I were doing it, I would probably, I'd probably take the risk and open up a storefront, but you got to be really committed, and you need to have some experience of having sold some things.
There's so many empty buildings too, that I don't know what's going on with them. I just haven't been able to reach anyone to really tell me what's going on with these buildings. I need to talk to the city, but yeah, there's even this really old 1950s looking appliance store that I thought that would be so cool. It looks like an old gas station, and they tried to make it into an appliance store, and I'm like, that would be such a cute little gallery,
So here's what to do in a case like that. What I would do, Misty, is I would, first off, I'd go to the city, because the cities hate empty buildings because it makes it look bad, right?
It does that.
So in some cities, they have ordinances that something has to be in the window to make it look like there's something going on, even if there's not. So I'd go to the city and say, hey, are there any particular buildings that you can think of that I could, put a presence in that would, make it look like it's busy? And they might tell you, they might not. The other thing is you can go to the tax records or the city and find out who owns the buildings. And so oftentimes buildings sit empty because there are heirs, right? So I know of an instance where some people I know own a bunch of homes in a particular community that used to be Airbnbs, and they haven't been promoting them since COVID because nobody's there, and the heirs don't even know what to do with them. All right. So there may be an heir that has a building and somebody died, they don't know what to do with it. So you contact the heir, or you contact the owner, you say, listen, you've got an empty building. I'm starting out my business. I don't have money to pay rent, but I'll move on a moment's notice. So you give me 5 days notice or 1 day's notice or a month notice. I'll move if you get it rented, and I'll pay you X percentage of everything I sell. And I'll pay the light bill or the air conditioning bill or something like that. And if I were a building owner, I'd go for that because it gets something in there, and then they could still have a for lease sign in the window, but you're in there. And then, when that one's done, these are called pop-up galleries.
Right.
And pop-up galleries are very popular in New York City. So people go to storefronts and they say, hey, I'll give you 50%. And, sometimes they're only there for a month. If there's a tourist season, let's say that tourist season is 3 months a year only, then you don't want to be paying rent year round anyway. You want to have time to build inventory, live your own life, take a vacation. And so maybe you cut a deal with somebody who's got an empty building, say, hey, 3 months. And if you want to pay rent, you can, but I like de-risking everything.
Really?
So
Yeah.
de-risking in my case is I don't want to commit to rent if I don't have to pay rent.
Okay. I thought you meant risking everything. I'm like, oh no, I don't want to do
No,
that.
I don't want to risk. I'm adverse to risk. So
Yeah,
I'm willing to give up a little bit more in the beginning if I don't have to pay rent.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, that sounds really good. That's sort of exciting. I definitely, it's worth reaching out to some of these people with these empty buildings. I worry that they're getting ready to be torn down. There's already one that got renovated. I guess it was dangerous. So I thought, well, maybe that's why these other ones are sitting there. But it's worth reaching out.
Well, you're in a small town. You probably know the mayor.
No,
Everybody.
I need to do that. Yeah, I need to reach out, but no, I don't know the mayor yet.
Yeah, I mean, mayors want to look good, right? They want the businesses to be prosperous. They want to get reelected. And you can just say, hey, here's my problem. I'm trying to solve this. Is there a building? They'll know.
Yeah. I really wondered why they've let downtown get run down. I just can't imagine. I feel like it should be like Santa Fe over here.
Well, maybe you should run for mayor.
I have no experience with it.
Well, nobody who's ever been mayor had experience being a mayor first. I mean, the Santa Fe got together 40 or 50 years ago, and they said, okay, we're going to make sure all the buildings have a certain look, and they made it a requirement.
Oh, it needs that so bad here, and it needs to be high end. I don't like when you talked about pricing the art, so that the owner could make a percentage or make some money off of it. I definitely think anything's here that's here. I mean, there are expensive things here. I mean, all the souvenir shops are expensive, and I definitely think the art should be very high end. I think it should be very expensive.
The chat has already it says Misty for mayor.
I love this town. I love it so much. I've been thinking, am I just overly optimistic? Am I crazy? I ended up here by accident, and a bunch of really, just life changes brought me here. But I have just been looking around and very inspired by by the atmosphere, the people, and the environment and the desert. I love the desert. So
Well, make sure that you follow up with us and let us know how that goes.
help! I need help. I need
All
suggestions.
right. Well, I'll run your campaign for you.
Yes. Well, I just want to sell paintings. I do realistic watercolor portraits. So maybe.
Oh, okay. Well, make sure, because we've got an audience of 18.2 million people now. What is your Instagram?
It is. Oh, I'm terrible about social media. So you caught me. Misty April Artist. So it's at Misty April Artist. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, somebody will put that in the chat. All right. Okay,
All
we'll
right.
all come.
Thank you so
We'll all
much.
come to 𝗪cie Tree and create a big rally for you.
Oh, you're all welcome. I have 5 acres. I can put everybody up.
All right, good. Misty
All
for
right.
mayor.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Misty. All right. Well, guys, I've got a lot more questions. I'll bring them back on next Monday, on Marketing Monday. But thank you, Misty, for having the guts to come on and see how much more fun that is when there's somebody to interact with. And Misty started to solve one problem, and now she's got another problem. She's going to run for mayor. Hey, we would love it if you guys would subscribe to this program. We're here every weekday. Mondays are Marketing Mondays. Fridays are Feedback Fridays. And in between, I put guest artists teaching. We believe anybody can learn to paint. When I started painting, I couldn't draw a stick figure. I couldn't do anything. I was awful. It was terrible. I had 2 different teachers tell me I should not pursue art because I didn't have what it took. And so I gave up a lot of times, but thankfully I persisted. And I have devoted my life to trying to figure out how to get people to learn to paint so it's not so hard. Because everybody thinks that it's natural talent that you need, but it's not. That's a myth. Nobody's born with natural talent, or very rarely. It is learning a process, and I can teach you that process. I have a whole bunch of things. First off, this show, 18.2 million views. We have, you could subscribe to this program. That would be helpful. If you watch any 5 shows that I'm teaching art or somebody's teaching art, you will get the confidence you need to realize you can do this. But if you want to take it to the next level, I have a site called painttube.tv, which is where you learn from the pros. These are not, done on people's iPhones. These are done with professional cameras, professional sound stages, very, very thoroughly produced, in-depth, step-by-step, self-paced art instruction courses from the world's leading artists. There's over 700 courses in there, and they are world-class. They're great. And that's at painttube.tv /ASL. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe, and make sure that you tune in tomorrow at 12 noon. We're going to have a great artist on tomorrow. Thanks again. Bye-bye.